Okay. We're rolling. All right. So, like I said, it's very important that you know the difference between an HTML file and a CSS file. Okay? Because what I've seen so far is when you are adding your header information, which is obviously very important, okay? I see people adding this information right here to your CSS file. Okay? This always goes at the top of the HTML file. All right? Now, before we get going and before we start talking about any of the code, okay, let's make sure we understand a couple basic items. Item number one, when you are naming your HTML file, is it okay to call it web space page? No. You cannot have spaces, okay? How about the file that you save your images, your text edit files, and things like that? Can you call it web space design? No. Okay, those are things that I'm seeing right now still. That cannot happen. Special characters, like backslashes in the and sign. Can you have those? No. So no spaces, no special characters. By all means, go ahead and have 3-word file names, but they cannot have spaces. You understand? Got it? Okay. And that's very important because I'm seeing a lot of instances of that in the work that you're doing. Okay? Now, what you see on your screen right now, okay, and hopefully you've copied over your header code, is a whole bunch of text. That specific language for the browser to read. This stuff is for you to know a little bit, and there's some important items in there, but for the majority of it is strictly for the browser to know, okay? And we are not going to get into where you need to know any of that. I've told you that, okay? But there are some items that you need to make sure that you are able to recognize. And the first thing is this right here, okay? Some of you have been caught adding an HTML file, an HTML start tag. Okay? You don't need to do that. It's there already for you. Okay? Yes, nowadays it comes with a load of attributes there, all right? But the HTML start tag is there. You no longer have to add that. Okay? It needs to be there, but by copying and pasting, you will have added it. Got it? Other items that you recognize, okay? Notice that head start tag is there. Yes, there is some more information in it, okay? Not anything that you're going to have to deal with. Additionally, something else you're going to have to adjust is your title, okay? It's tucked away in there. So make sure you're adjusting that when you are creating your new web pages, all right? Now, perhaps the most important thing that we are having introduced to us in this past week and going forward is this area right here, all right? Your link type, your relation, and your reference to your style sheet, okay? Now, this is where you are going to have to make sure that you're paying attention if you weren't already, because this is where you're going to add your file. So, for those of you that have one text edit file, now would be a good time to go ahead and open a new text edit file, a new blank text edit file. And you can do that just by going Command N on your keyboard. That's an easy way to do it. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. Now, I guess before we go any further, it would probably be important for us to save our different files. Okay? Now, first things first is our HTML file. Let's go ahead and save that. And in the true spirit of this week, let's go ahead and name, and I guess you can name whatever you want, but I'm going to call my HTML file March, what do you think I'm going to go with? Madness. Dot HTML. Okay? Notice, 2 words, okay? No spaces, no special characters. And I'm just going to save it right to my desktop just because I'm doing it as an example. Some of you have file folders that you've set up. You can utilize those. Just check on the file names. And there we go. Now, while I'm in the spirit of saving, I'm going to go ahead and come on over here to the second file. And guess what file this is going to be? CSS. This is going to be my CSS file. And I'm going to explain things here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I can call that March Madness as well because I'm assigning it a different file extension. This one is going to go .css. And I go ahead and save that. Now, something crazy that happened, and I don't know how crazy it really is, but you'll notice that the icons are different from file to file. Okay, I really don't know the reason. I don't know that it makes a difference because you're never going to open up your CSS file in a browser. Okay, it saves it as something that will open in a browser, and it will, but you're never going to physically open just the CSS file. The browser will reference it behind the scenes a little bit, but you know, the only thing that you're going to open is this HTML file, which you already know. Okay? And so let's talk about this link area right here. Okay? Now, the number one mistake I see students do is when they go to change this file, because let me go ahead and open up my HTML file. Give that a second for my browser to open. Well, don't be confused because I automatically have all these tabs open when Google Chrome opens. So I just closed them all, but you need to open up your HTML file. That's the only file you're ever going to open. Don't open CSS files in a browser. Okay, so what you see here is that I have a very blank file. Okay, I haven't added any content. Okay, yes, I have CSS linked to it, but it's not going to do anything because of the fact that there's nothing to format on my page. So the next thing that I should probably do is I should probably add my body tags, okay, in preparation of adding content to the body of my web page. Now here's where, go ahead and add this stuff, and I want to explain the difference between HTML and CSS. Just a reminder. So go ahead and add body start tag, body end tag, and of course HTML end tag. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, now let's keep this in mind for the rest of the semester, okay? HTML is what places items on the body of your web page, okay? It's as basic and as bare as it gets, okay? All it is used for placing text, images, and of course links on there, all right? If you want to really talk about things that we've gone over, buttons as well, okay? And we can also add tables to our HTML, okay? But anything structured like that, all right, that is going to go in your HTML. Got it? Now, anything that adjusts how we view your content is going to go on your CSS, okay? So think of it as your body as the HTML, and the clothes you put on your body as the CSS, okay? You can adjust the clothes that you wear each day and get a different look, all right? And much is the same with CSS and HTML, all right? And so please try and think of it that way. Now, we can adjust what file we use to format our HTML, okay? And it's right up here, all right? Now, the biggest mistake, like I was going to say, is that students will actually delete up to there. Okay, I see that often. Do not make that mistake. Only the file, okay? Only that href there is what we're going to change out. So when you copy it to your next text edit file to start your next website, okay, be mindful of that. Like I said, another thing we got to make sure we check on is our title. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get in the habit of changing this up. So I'm just going to go ahead and call that March Madness. Save it. Saving's a good habit as well. And just to make sure we're connected, I'm going to go ahead and refresh that. You'll notice up top there that it did actually change. Okay? Are we all good? We still with me? All right. Any questions? Any confusion? Speak now or speak later. All right. Now, another very important item right here is linking our CSS file to our HTML file. Okay? In order for our browser to find how we want to format our HTML, it has to be able to reference our particular CSS file. Well, here is where we add that CSS file. Now remember last week I told you there's two different ways to do it. There's an easy way and there's a slightly less easy way. The easy way is to simply click on the icon of your CSS file up at the top. Notice when I start moving it, it moves. And I can drag that right there. And it automatically links it. All right. Now, the other way, the more traditional way that we've been using, is to simply go to your desktop, find that CSS file, there it is, or wherever it is that you saved it, and drag that in. Okay. Both does it the same way. One is just a little bit easier to get to. Go ahead and do that. I don't want to move too far ahead of anyone. While you are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 3 different sets of p tags, 3 different elements. 2 of the elements are going to have text. The other element is going to have a nested image. So if you want to go ahead and work on that, it will bring me to my next talking point. Notice in the third one that I added an image. The image, for whatever reason, has a bunch of spaces and special characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit that in the file name, and then of course I have to go to my desktop and make the change in the file name as well. You're going to need 3. What's that? Well, you can see from my example that I added 2 of them with text content, as you can see up here. And then I went down a couple lines and I added one with an image. Okay, because remember, like I said from the start, is we got to make sure that we're nesting our images in p tags. It's a good habit to get into. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and check my page, make sure my content is showing up, and in fact it is. Okay, but you, for those of you that are really paying attention, you may question the fact that I haven't added any text to my CSS so far. So why is my text red? And I'll answer that for you here in a second. So let's make sure that everyone has this stuff right here, and then I will pick up here in about a minute. So go ahead and make sure you get an image in there. Make sure that image is nested. Make sure you get 2 p tags with text content, and that will help our instruction out quite a bit. Hopefully add some clarity. Like I said, please, please, please continue to ask questions. What did I end the image tag with? That's a great question. It's tough to see because it drops down in the next line. I started with a p tag, so I got to make sure I end it with a p tag. So there you go. That should help you out, right? Yep. Are we good?
No.
Okay. Another minute. If you're watching on the tape right now, feel free to fast forward. I'm recording this. This would be a great time to have a word from our sponsors if we had sponsors, but we don't have sponsors, so. Oh. It wasn't really. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Now, backtracking just a bit. All right, you may have noticed what I said in that I have this CSS file here, and I haven't added any formatting to it. So why in the world do I have red text? Anyone want to venture a guess? Okay, I know that some of you are thinking it and you don't want to say it, but here's the fact of the matter right now. When you copy and paste previous text edit or previous HTML header text edit to a new file, you're obviously going to have an old link on it, all right, from when you formatted before. That's exactly what's happening in this case. It's very important for you to remember to update to your new text edit file, okay? And I didn't do that, so now I'm going to do that. And there you go. When I update that, you will notice that my formatting goes away because I have no specifications for formatting in this new file, which is fine. We haven't gotten there yet. So make sure that you have the correct file each time in your HTML file. Got it? All right, and you'll notice, you'll wonder why, there's all this formatting when you haven't even done anything yet, okay? And it'll be something that becomes second nature for you, hopefully. All right? Okay, moving on. Let's go ahead and start adding some formatting. Now, in this case, all we have are 3 different p tags that we can format, all right? In the coming week, we'll learn a whole lot more in terms of what we can format. And some of the stuff is stuff we touched on even last week, okay? So let's go ahead, and the first thing that we want to add in there is a p tag, okay? Because we want to tell the browser, hey, you're going to format this p tag. So we're going to add the p tag, throw a mustache in there, and just to be simple to start, we're just going to change the color. And in the spirit of March Madness, we're going to go with green, not blue. Now, there are a lot of different edits that we can make to the font. All right? What's another type of edit that we can make to the font, if some of you remember from last week? Font? No, that's an HTML. Font face, or what is it really? What is it? How do I change the font type? Huh? Is it? Is it? Are you nervous? Are you sure? How come it didn't work? How come it's not working then? Oh! And that's something that needs to be asked, okay? I threw in cracked there, and I've done that in the past in this class. I've thrown in cracked. Cracked worked great in Safari. Cracked doesn't work so well with Chrome, okay? It didn't recognize it. So all I had to do was switch up the font type. And notice that I switched to a font type with not 1 but 2 words in its name. Did you notice the adjustment I made? When I have a multiple multiple word font type, I have to add quotation marks. All right? And you see I did that and it worked. Now, let's move on, okay? Notice that any instance of p tag, when I do that, will change, okay? And no matter how many different files I have this particular file, the CSS file linked to, any instance of a p tag, let's say I have this linked to 300 HTML files, okay? And every single one has a p tag in it. By just adding this to this one file like this that is all linked to, it will change every instance of p tag, okay? So before, remember, we had to go in and we had to change each one. We had to go as an attribute to font, and we had to go font color equals green. Remember that? Wasn't that long ago, okay? We don't have to do that anymore, all right? We can make mass changes across the board. Now, check this out. So let's say we have this image here, okay? We have it nested in our p tags, and we want to align that image to the right side of the web page. Seems easy enough, right? What's that? So I go ahead and I say that p tag, I want to text align to the right with my mustache. And I go over here. Now look what happened.
The whole thing went over.
Yeah. Why?
It didn't classify it.
Very good.
Classify it.
Here's what I did. Is I said, hey, this p tag that I have my image nested in, I go ahead and throw a p tag and I say, hey, text align to the right. Well, it just so happens that these are p tags as well. Okay? Well, I don't want my text to move. All I want is my image to move. So Brody brought up this handy idea that I should add a classification. Okay? That way I can make specific particular p tags. So, talked about this last week briefly, but here you go. All I need to do is add a classification that will match up and make specific my particular p tag I want to move. Okay? So, as an attribute within that p tag, I throw in a class, and I can name it whatever I want. I try and stick with one word. Okay? Let's call it basketball. Okay? Save it. Head on over to my other TextEdit file, and right next to this p tag, I go dot basketball. Save it. Notice that these two match up. Basketball, basketball. As long as they match, it will work.
Go back to your text.
Yes, I will. Okay, I could change this to mug, as in coffee mug.
Wait, why does it matter what we put in there?
It doesn't matter as long as they match.
I didn't put one into the thing and still moved it.
Okay? Because, watch, remember my example before? Oops. Okay, if you say you just left this as a p tag,
Well, yeah, just
but here's what I said. I don't want my text at the top to move over. Okay? I only wanted this image to move over. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that class back on, and this time we'll go back to basketball. Save it. Make sure you save it. Calls during class are not accepted during recordings. And we'll go ahead and make sure this is still working, and it is. Now let's take this a step further. Let's take this a step further. Okay, let's say, Bogue, you're going to like this one. Let's say that I want this p tag to be, what do you want to do?
Purple.
You want to make it just purple? Okay, so I'm going to add a class to this, and I'll just call it class equals title. All right, so I go over here. Oops, I go to my my CSS, and I'm going to say this class dot title, as Austin said, is going to be purple. Now keep in mind, I can use color codes as well. It's just I don't feel like looking them up at this point. Okay, and notice when I refresh that, that changes purple.
Go back to your text edit.
Yes. Okay, so they're all p tags, but they're all different. Okay, and that one is green, one is purple, and one is centered. Okay, because I've added classifications to a couple of them. Let me make this a little bigger.
How come your picture? Is your picture on the right?
Yes.
Mine's on the left.
Did you right align it or left align it?
I don't think I aligned the picture. I just did the text line.
That's why. Okay, now look at right here, Bogue. I added that attribute, that class attribute to the p tags where the image is nested, and then over here, I was saying p tag. I said p.basketball. Okay, to match up with this one. So the browser knows that, hey, I look for the paragraph with the basketball in it, and I'm going to align that one to the right. Okay, I look for the paragraph with the title in it, and I'm going to make sure that one's purple. And any other generic p tag, okay? Generic p tag is going to be green. Okay? Does this help to clarify? Does it?
Wait, what do you do for the coloring thing after you guys do the CSS?
Now, what's very important, okay, what's very important, just to kind of recap some things, all right? You see that? You see where it says color, okay? See where it says color? This is a property right here, okay? Selector, property, value, all right? Just like we broke down element content tag in HTML, we can break this down as well, okay? Selector, property, value. You're going to get quizzed on this. You need to know it. Property value. Okay? Selector. Now, it's very important that you make sure that you have particular items like colons after your property and semicolons after your value. Rarely, and very rarely, you will be asked to make sure that you have quotations, okay? Or in the instance from last week, when we added a background image, it asked you to add parentheses around that image file, okay? So there are some instances where that's going to have to be adjusted, and we'll talk more about that and review that when we do that. But, you know, we're going to start getting into some new things here, okay? In this week, we're going to talk divs, div IDs. All right, so it's very important that you kind of get on track with this stuff right here. This video that I'm recording right now will be posted to YouTube and Google+. So, that's right. So make sure that if you're confused, you ask questions or reference the video. All right? Now, everyone understands how this stuff works, right? And why it works? Your CSS file does nothing if it's not linked on your HTML file. Okay? Now, everyone understands that you only need one CSS file, right?
Yes, yeah.
Per website. And you can have as many HTML files as you want, correct? All right? So let's look at it in terms of ceiling tiles, okay? These are all 3 HTML files, okay? Here's your CSS file right here, okay? This one formats this one. This one formats this one. This one formats this one. And it can go on and format every other ceiling tile in this room just from this one CSS file. Got it? The ceiling is not going to come down, don't worry. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense.
Okay? Now you don't have to go through and add attributes to every single text that you want green. Okay? Your life is a little bit easier, especially when you make your 5-page website out of code in here
We have to make a 5-page website?
Yeah.
When?
in a couple weeks. Did you hear that? All right. Any other questions about this that I can provide clarification on? Okay. Then that concludes our session.